Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. This is Michelle Smith, State Coordinator for Texas Action for Healthy Kids. I'd like to welcome you to our March 28th webinar on SHACs in Action, Social Emotional Learning. I would ask anybody that has not muted to mute themselves if possible so that we don't get the background noise. This webinar is brought to you by, well, let me do a couple of logistics first. You can obviously use your phone or your computer speakers to listen to this webinar. All attendees are muted, only the presenters will be unmuted while they're presenting. There is a box in the control panel on the right side of your screen, I believe, where you can submit your questions. So please, as you're going along, submit them. We will have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll answer all those questions at that time. If you have clarifying questions after our first speakers, you can certainly ask those and then just hold the rest, or go ahead and enter them, and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. We are recording the webinar. We will be sending out a follow-up email with the link to the webinar so that you can share it with people that you feel would benefit from viewing this. And we will also, if we have resource materials from our presenters, we will send those along in that follow-up email as well. We do offer CEU credits for our certificates for this. If you are wanting one of those, you can email webinar@itstimetexas.org, and they will provide you with a CEU certificate. All these organizations obviously care about healthy kids. The Department of State Health Services used to be the primary provider of support for school health advisory councils, but then they disbanded their school health network, and there wasn't anybody left to support SHACs. So Action for Healthy Kids has been around for 15 years, and all these people you see here are on our steering committee and we're interested in supporting SHACs. So we kind of got together and have been working to have webinars, and It's Time Texas developed a website. They've also sponsored yearly annual awards, and Ashley is with us today, and she's going to share a little bit of information on that. So Texas Health and Human Services, Department of State Health Services, has a web page with a guide for school health advisory councils. And then, as I mentioned, It's Time Texas also has a web page where you can find resources for SHACs as well. So I'm going to ask Ashley to share a little bit of information on their upcoming entries for the SHAC Awards.
Hi everyone, this is Ashley with It's Time Texas, and I wanted to just share a little bit of information with you about the SHAC Awards that we have coming up, or that are actually open now. Award or applications will be accepted through April 15th. There is a link on the slide, which Michelle will be sending out, so that will take you to the application. There is also more information on that SHAC webpage that Michelle just mentioned. And we just want to learn all about the wonderful work that you guys are already doing with the SHACs in your school districts. And there are some awards that recipients will receive. So the opportunity to help present some of your successes is part of the webinar series that we do. So for next year, and then also recognition on that SHAC webpage. You'll also receive recognition at the 2018 Healthier Texas Summit, which is put on by It's Time Texas, and then also 2 registrations for the summit, as well as a travel stipend to help you get there. And then also registration for the 2019 Talk Annual Summit. So we just really encourage you to apply. We're really excited to learn about the work that you are doing, and to be able to recognize you for that work. And if you have any questions about it, you can feel free to email me. My email was on the previous slide, but it's ashley@itstimetexas.org. And again, we'll be sending these slides out.
Thanks, Ashley. I would hope that if you're on this webinar that you are familiar with school health advisory councils. Sometimes we do have different states that join us. School health advisory councils in Texas are something that is mandatory. It is a district level council, not a campus level council, but it works with the districts to ensure that local community values are reflected in the district's health education instruction. It's an opportunity to have parents and the community involved in the decisions that impact what is happening around student health. They are mandated by state law in Texas. They're appointed by the school board. They must consist of at least 50% parents who are not employed by the school district, so that we're ensured that parents have a strong voice in what is happening around health for their students. And it's really a strong way to share the importance of health with school districts, with the board, and make sure that the whole child and that health is a central focus for the district. SHACs are mandated to review all health-related curriculum and also make recommendations on health-related topics. The model that was used in the past was the Coordinated School Health Model from CDC. Now we focus more on the school, the whole child, whole school, whole community, whole child model. In Texas, you'll probably hear more about the coordinated school health because that was put into law. Each school has to select a coordinated school health program or develop their own program and implement it grades K through 8. So we still focus on coordinated school health, but like I said, we do promote the whole school, whole community, whole child model. So today we are really excited to have with us Katie Brush from Harvard, as well as Stephanie Jones, who is the professor of education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And the two of them have, I was privileged to be on a webinar where they presented some information on their work and felt this was something that would be extremely useful to our schools and school districts across the state. So asked them to join us this morning. We have two other presenters who are also going to present the SHAC perspective, but Katie and Stephanie are our content experts and will be able to share more information on the actual programs. So I am going to switch the screen to Stephanie, and then she will be able to pull up her slides.
Okay. Did you see?
There you are.
Okay, great.
But you are, honestly, you're in presenter mode, so you might want to just put it in, because we will be able to see your...
My notes.
Yes.
Huh. Okay. So I can just put it in...
Look up at where it says display settings up at the top there. I believe that's where you would change it.
How about that?
Does
that work?
Yes. Perfect.
Oh, great. Thank you. It's always, the technical stuff is always so complicated. So thank you so much for having us. We're really happy to be here. And this is a project that we've been doing for a number of years that resulted in the report I'm going to describe very quickly today. So just a bit about myself. I'm a developmental psychologist, and I've been at Harvard for about 10 years, and my research is focused nearly exclusively on children's social, emotional, and behavioral development, primarily under conditions of stress and vulnerability. And Catherine, or Katie, as we call her, is a research assistant and really took the lead on organizing and designing and enacting this project that resulted in the report. The title of the report is Navigating SEL from the Inside Out, What's Inside Evidence-Based Programs. And what we thought we'd do today is just give you an overview of the report itself. You can access the report It's free online through the Wallace Foundation. If you just Google Navigating SEL from the Inside Out, you'll find it, along with a variety of briefs and other resources that we've done related to this project. So our agenda is to give you a kind of very brief introduction, why we did it, what's in it, to tell you about what we learned, so what the key program features are, to show you some details of what's inside the report, and then review some resources we have available for using the report to select or adapt evidence-based SEL programs. So that's what the report looks like. It's designed as a practical resource for schools or out-of-school time providers or anyone else who really wants to, who either wants to adapt the work that they're currently doing in SEL or start fresh and pick a program that suits their needs. It's an in-depth guide to 25 leading SEL programs for elementary school. It includes a bunch of tools and a lot of narrative describing best practices for SEL implementation, and for making decisions about what to do in the domain of SEL in elementary school. The focus is on elementary school. So we know from lots of research that evidence-based SEL programs make a difference for students in lots of domains, as we would expect, in behavior and attitudes about school, in mental health domains such as conduct, attention, depression, but also in areas that aren't necessarily directly targeted by those programs, which is areas like academic achievement. There's lots of programs out there, some, not all of which have been studied in great detail, but there's really not a lot of detailed information about what's inside these programs, what they focus on, how they do it, and what kinds of components they include to support the work. They vary a great deal. Some focus really a great deal on emotions, while others focus on character. Some focus on multiple domains. Some have really detailed scope and sequence. Others are really focused on practices for adults. And in our view, the world needs more information to make choices about what to adopt and use based on their setting, which is why we created this report. So for those who use the report, they can use it to select programs or strategies that align with their work, that meet their own SEL goals, that align with other outcomes that they are prioritizing, align with funding or other kinds of guidelines in the system. They can use it to pick programs that are suited to other kinds of initiatives that are happening in the setting, like out-of-school time initiatives. The report includes support for planning and goal-setting conversations among the parties who make these kinds of decisions. And it can be used to think again about practices that are already in place or programs that have already been adopted. So the process for creating the report, we started with 25 programs. They all met a certain set of criteria to be included. We analyzed the kinds of skills that were targeted by the program, the kinds of instructional methods they use, and we looked at the additional program components that were included, and we then created snapshots, profiles, a bunch of tools, and those are all in the report. So we focused on 25 programs. We really wanted to highlight what kinds of SEL skills are targeted explicitly, what kinds of instructional methods are used, and then what additional program components are offered. And then with that information, did a kind of non-evaluative comparison of programs. So this program tends to do this, while, more than this program does. This program has these types of components and emphasizes these things, whereas this program has these kinds of components. So it's that kind of comparative language that's included. The programs are these. We have a set of in-school lesson-based programs. in-school non-curricular programs, which are programs that don't really have a scope and sequence and a set of lessons. They're more like strategies and practices that happen or that are implemented by teachers as a regular part of their practice, or stuff that they might do in a different setting other than the classroom, like the Playworks program. And then we have a small set of out-of-school time programs. The report describes the extent to which each of these 25 programs focuses on a common skills across 5 core SEL domains. Those include cognitive regulation, which is those core executive functions and sort of inhibitory response inhibition and self-control, a set of emotion processes, a set of social processes or interpersonal skills, character concepts like ethical values and performance values, and then attitudes and beliefs that typically fall into this mindset category. So we basically bought all the programs, read them in detail down to the, the finest level of analysis, meaning down to the activity inside lessons, inside units. And we said to ourselves, okay, in reading this activity, which of these particular skills does this activity promote? And we used that to categorize programs' relative emphasis in these different areas. In terms of instructional methods, we coded the activities for all of these different ways of teaching those skills. So you might have a discussion in a particular activity among pairs of students or small groups or as a whole class. A visual display might include charts and posters that live in the environment of the room that are reminders for certain kinds of skills or practices. In terms of program components, we described the extent to which each program offers these 10 different things. Family engagement, for example, includes activities or events or suggestions for incorporating families in the work. Adaptability to local context, as another example, refers to having resources for adapting or tailoring a program to specific populations. So all of the programs vary across these different components. Some have them and really do it a lot, and some don't have them at all. So inside the report, there are 4 sections. The first is a general overview of SEL, lots of useful information in there about the field in general. A second section describes opportunities for thinking about how to align the work of SEL in schools with the work of SEL out of schools, in out-of-school time or other kinds of settings. There are a bunch of tools for making these general comparisons across programs, and then the bulk of the report is a snapshot, a detailed snapshot for each of the 25 programs. The practical products are really these tables that provide a comparison across the programs in skills, instructional methods, and components, and then these detailed program profiles. So here's just an example of one of the charts. This has a subset of the programs because they wouldn't all fit on one page, and it shows you their relative focus in these different social and emotional skill areas. So in the red, we have that cognitive area, those core executive functions, and you can see that there are some programs that really do emphasize that to a greater degree than others. And if that were a priority for your setting, you might think about programs that come up in this heat map as sort of really red, like I can problem solve. The yellow are those core emotion skills, the green, the social skills, the blue character, and the purple mindset. So you can get a sense of where programs focus their emphasis in terms of skill building. This is a similar kind of chart, but focuses on those instructional methods. And it's the same kind of thing. The bluer it is, the more emphasis relative to the other programs it has on that particular instructional method. If you look at the bottom at Playworks, it really has, compared to the other programs, a lot of games and kinesthetic activities in it. And if that were something that was highly resonant with your setting and of interest, you might think about choosing a program like that. Then a final chart, these are the components of each program. So Paths, for example, has lots of classroom activities that go beyond the core lesson. So that's a filled in circle, which means it's sort of comprehensive. But if you look along the bottom, it doesn't really provide any tools to assess implementation in an ongoing way, whereas Good Behavior Game does. So this really gives you a sense of all the kinds of other components that the program offers to support the work. The program profiles have for each program a kind of general overview. It provides a summary of the research for that program. It provides a summary of the skill areas that that program emphasizes, and then it breaks that down into finer domains. It provides a heat map just for that program that shows relative emphasis in skill domains both across grades and across the units of the curriculum. It describes the primary instructional methods, and it describes those program components, and then it has a narrative that describes the program in comparison to the others in the set. And then, of course, it has contact information. Using the report, I kind of have covered some of these things, but it can be used in lots of different ways to learn about SEL, to select programs or adapt or adopt existing strategies. The report focuses distinctly on out-of-school time settings, which is often unattended to in this world. So we have program profiles for at least 3 SEL programs designed for out-of-school settings. It rates the school-based programs based on how adaptable they are to out-of-school time, and then it provides a set of principles or considerations to think about when trying to adapt in school for out of school. So in service of that, we included in the report a pyramid that supports thinking about how to adapt in school and out of school or align them to each other. And the truth is that both in school and out of school are really the same underlying principles. They're about providing a safe and positive environment, supporting high quality relationships with others, that they have developmentally appropriate and engaging activities, and they provide opportunities for direct skill building. We think that there are 5 considerations when thinking about how to adopt in-school SEL programs for out-of-school time, and these 5 things are described in the report, and they can be points of conversation between stakeholders when thinking about what to adopt. And then finally, we describe a set of sort of structures, strategies, routines, and activities that are the source material for the work in school or out of school. The report at the end includes a set of worksheets that are designed to help the parties who are thinking about adopting something figure out what their priorities are and how to collaborate on adopting them. We have one worksheet for school settings that covers needs and goals, sort of what time is available, the structure of the setting, what the needs for leadership and training, and so on, and then the same kind of thing for out-of-school settings. And that is all. Sorry I went so fast, but we'll share the slides with anybody who wants them. And I'm now going to turn it over to Michelle. Which I have done. Hello?
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Josette Saxon with the EASEL ISD School Health Advisory Council.
Hi there. Hold on.
And
This is Michelle.
hi.
I'm trying to get my screen back for you.
I was just going to say, are you controlling this, Michelle, or am I?
I will be as soon as I get this pulled back up.
Okay.
I sent it back to you, I think.
Yes, you did. I just have to, since I have the slides in there, I have to get to the next set of slides before I show my screen. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I had plugged in your program, and like I said, then I didn't think about advancing my slides while I was sitting here. That would have been the smart thing to do, but I was listening. Okay, so now let's go to my screen, and We have Hugh Simmons, who is the chair of the Social Emotional Behavior Committee for Austin ISD SHAC, and Josette Saxon, who is the co-chair for Eanes ISD SHAC, and they will share how they've been working together and what they're doing on schools advisory councils. Is everybody seeing the lovely Josette?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Then I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. And now just to double check, were you able to move the slides for me, or do I do it?
I will go ahead and move them for you.
Thank you very much. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to speak to you just about some of the things that both the SHAC that I participate in, as well as some other SHACs in our region, are helping our districts to address social emotional learning in students, and also looking at behavioral health more broadly. If we could move to the next slide. So, as we heard earlier, that recently, or in the past few years, the CDC has, expanded coordinated school health model to, encompass more of the whole school, whole community, whole child, sort of framework of approach in supporting our students. And what we found is that since historically a lot of the components of coordinated school health might have focused more on the physical health aspects, I think going into more of the the new expanded aspects that are more related to behavioral health, social, emotional learning, and school climate, it's sort of like a new area for SHACs to sort of take on. And so I know, just to speak briefly about my experience within the Eanes ISD SHAC, I know it's something that the SHAC has played a large role in district efforts to address social emotional learning, throughout the district, and the school administration and the school boards have looked to the SHAC as the way to get that, the parent and the community input to help guide their work. So I know, even just speaking to the experience of, our one district SHAC, it's something that the district has used us to help guide their efforts. And then what we found was, and then after, if we can go to the next slide. And again, I think this is here I was just, speaking to, this is again, just laying out the different model or the different components of the expanded whole school, whole community, whole child model. And then the ones that are highlighted there in red, again, these are the pieces that we found that traditionally, at least within our district, our SHAC wasn't necessarily working in these spaces because of the increased awareness of the importance of social emotional learning and skills, school climate, as well as counseling, mental health needs of students, recognizing that this is a space where we wanted to work in. The SHAC has, the district has stepped up, and the SHAC has also stepped up to help meet that need. If we go to the next slide, also just speaking to the part of this expanded model, some of the things that it's looking at, talking about the collaboration. So it's collaborating, even like within the district, on how we can work within the district, within our campuses, and then also pulling in, community resources and expertise on how we can promote good outcomes for students, having all the sectors working together. What I find is interesting, or what is, I think is, or at least it might not be unique across the state, but I thought it was it was a great opportunity when recognizing that while the Eanes ISD school district, which I am a part of, their SHAC, since they were doing this, it's knowing that other school districts in our region were also engaged in similarly aligned efforts, looking at student behavioral health, looking at social emotional learning. And so I had the pleasure of hearing from the colleague who is going to be speaking next, Hugh, who's had, sort of the brainstorm idea of why don't, since our SHACs are supposed to promote collaboration and coordination within the districts, what opportunities might there be to promote coordination and collaboration from SHACs within our region? So with this, if you can move to the next slide, Hugh, I think could share with y'all a little bit about, I think, how this collaboration among SHACs started, that is looking at social, emotional, and behavioral health.
Sure. Thank you, Josette, and thanks, everybody. So it's my pleasure to be here and continue this presentation. So right off the bat, this wasn't my brainstorm. As much as I would love to claim credit for it, this was really a sort of a collaborative brainstorm, so to speak, that came from the Austin Independent School District SHAC. So I'm a member of the AISD SHAC, and I am the chair of the Social Emotional Behavioral Health Subcommittee for the AISD SHAC. And and it is via that subcommittee that, via discussion with the whole SHAC through a presentation with the subcommittee, that one of the SHAC members expressed an interest in connecting with other school health advisory committees. And that idea really took fire within the AISD SHAC. There was a lot of interest in that. And so I was, I was the natural lead as the, in my role with the Social Emotional Behavioral Health Committee to be point person for that. But it really was very much SHAC-wide, if you will, area of interest. So, who is participating so far? So essentially what we did in the AISD SHAC was we thought, it'd be really good. We've got a lot of energy in SE, social emotional behavioral, but also in a broader context just around emotional health. And not just a sort of specific SEL programming within AISD, but also lots of different emotional and mental health ingredients that there's a strong interest in the AISD SHAC. So there was a lot of curiosity, what's going on with other ISDs in that, and what is the potential to interact, to help each other, support each other in this area for student mental health. So we reached out to a number of ISDs. We reached out to Eames ISD, Hayes ISD, Manor ISD. We also reached out to Pflugerville ISD and Del Valle ISD. The SHACs that really were, I think, just sort of structurally ready to come on board first were Eames, Hayes, and Manor ISD. We do have interest from Pflugerville ISD and Del Valle ISD. I think they're not quite ready, but I suspect that that's going to change. And so why have we reached out to engage in, as the slide says, social emotional behavioral health activities? What are we all doing? How can we learn from each other? How can we help each other? And how can we amplify our efforts? Now, AISD came into this, so this is sort of our idea, but that doesn't mean we're driving the bus as AISD. We're very interested in developing a collaborative relationship with these other ISDs to see what we can all do together. So this is an evolving process as opposed to something that's driven by any particular ISD. And maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is just a map of where the ISDs are in Central Texas. So you see Austin ISD is sort of smack in the middle, then north is Eames, and northeast is Manor, south is Hayes. To the east, southeast is Del Valle, and then you have Pflugerville, which is a little bit north of Manor. So we have not identified, okay, we're only going to have so many ISDs involved. This is a more organic process. We're beginning with the ISDs that are ready to jump on board first, developing some collaborative early understandings, and then seeing how we can grow organically from there, or if it makes sense to grow organically from there. And maybe we can go to the next slide. And so first, what was most important is to identify, well, what is the mission statement for this collaboration? And so what we did was we came up with a mission statement draft that we are now in the process of getting approved by the different ISD SHACs. And here it is. The mission statement is, social, emotional, and behavioral health is critical to student achievement. The School Health Advisory Council collaboration therefore seeks to share information and to develop an amplified share messaging about social, emotional, and behavioral wellness in order to advocate for students in our districts. So it's really critical, we think, that we have a mission statement that each SHAC is very comfortable with, will help us in outreach to other ISDs, SHACs, but also will help us to determine that whatever we're doing fits within a comfort area for each SHAC. So this mission statement has been formally approved by the AISD SHAC. It has been shared with the Eames ISD SHAC. Its formal approval expected in April. Manor ISD, since we put this together, has approved this as well. And so we're just waiting on the one more approval. And now, because SHACs meet at different schedules, the AISD SHAC meets on a monthly basis, different ISD SHACs have different sort of meeting schedules. I think what we're finding is tenacity is key. So it can take a while to get, just to get all these SHACs together to really put something out and get some traction. So we're being patient. So tenacity is really key. This is the second year of the SHAC collaboration. The first year, it began in the second half of last year. And so I think if we can come out of this year with a mission statement for each SHAC that everybody is signed on to, that allows us next year to identify some achievable targets. And that's, I think that's really where we're headed. So right now, we just need to get this mission statement approved by all of the participating SHACs, and then continuing that process of organically seeing where we want to go. And again, this will be very collaborative. Options could be that we identify a particular service need that all of the SHACs agree, yeah, this is a high priority, and then we collaboratively communicate with our respective ISDs, as this is a shared messaging from multiple SHACs. It could be that. It could be that there's a specific targeted need, as well as maybe some programming or a targeted need that we want to highlight. So that has yet to be determined, but this has been very, very satisfying to be a part of, very exciting, and it's the beginning of what we're hoping is a very successful initiative. So with that, I'm going to close, and I understand that there may be some questions.
Thanks so much, Hugh and Josette. Their contact information will be available on the slides as well. I do have some questions. So let's, since you guys just finished and these were kind of relating to that, and someone commented that you had, in part of your mission statement, that y'all were going to develop messaging. Was that messaging about SELs so that it's something that they can use to promote to their district administration, or what were you thinking when y'all put that in your mission statement?
The messaging really needs to be coming from the ISC SHACs. So as we meet and talk, so how it works is, probably should have been a little bit more clear about this when I presented, is that we will have either conference calls or face-to-face meetings with representatives of the ISD SHACs. And then we will identify some pieces that we want to present to respective SHACs for attention. So this would be a collaborative development. What do we feel as a collaborative venture is important and high priority that we want to share with our respective ISDs as a collaborative message? We haven't gotten to what it's going to be exactly yet. SEL, of course, figures highly on the list, but SEL is not necessarily the only thing that would fit within this mission statement. We tried to write the mission statement to be clear enough that it gives us some direction as a collaboration, but also broad enough that it's not constraining us to one particular thing. But right now, we're in the phase of building this collaboration, and the infrastructure of the collaboration with a clear mission statement.
Okay. How do you get SHAC to look at SEL as part of their scope of work? Y'all, if y'all discussed that as part of this coalition, is that something?
This is.
Go ahead.
This is
Go ahead,
Josette. So I know the way I think it was sort of a combining or a connecting of the dots within my district, where I think there were where the district was already has interest in this area, as well as SHAC members having interest in the area. And I think the magic sort of happened when we were able to, as a SHAC, be available and ready to help assist the district in their work. So it was being ready to be a resource for the district when they already had that that interest. I think but flipping on the other side, if our district administration or board wasn't interested in addressing social emotional learning, the social health, the emotional health of their students, I think the way for a SHAC to sort of encourage that is share with the other SHAC leadership or district leadership, which could include administration, so your district liaison, principals, superintendents, as well as a school, take advantage, of approaching, the school board in your in the annual report that each SHAC is supposed to give, or even as individual SHAC members, I would say, going to a SHAC board meeting, and, just sort of highlighting the impact that social, emotional, and behavioral health has on student, learning outcomes, behavior, and sort of tying it into those things that the school district is interested in. And not saying that they're not interested in the social, emotional, and behavioral health or social, emotional learning of students, but I think it's being able to point out to them and showing them even the research about how these skills and capacities and aspects of student health impact, test scores, impacts attendance, graduation rates, and things like that. I will also mention that there is the State School Health Advisory Committee, which is sort of like the state level SHAC in Texas, has compiled resources in these various areas to make it, to sort of help local SHACs share, some of the research and information with their districts. So, again, if you are a local SHAC that, wants these social, emotional, behavioral health and learning of students to be on your district's radar, I would say, look, gather some of the resources and the research that's available and some of the talking points, and just start sharing them in your district and showing about how addressing these student needs helps the school in their, ultimate goals of, preparing students for success and making sure that, they're doing well in school and they're able to stay in school and graduate. It's really just like, making the case and being the advocate for these issues.
Perfect. So does the SHAC make a recommendation on specific SEL programs, or do they just get the district interested?
I would say it's meeting the district where they're at. If the district is, if they're still learning, if they're still trying to get buy-in to, these programs or practices, I think you start there and just show them what the benefits are. Once they are selecting, if the SHAC feels, they could offer assistance in selecting. I think always it's important to make sure that folks are pointing to or recommending the need for research and evidence-based programs. You want to make sure whatever they're doing, it's something that is going to work or is likely to work. So I think what SHACs can do is offer themselves up to as a resource to their districts about help them in gathering information and selecting programs and getting parent and community feedback. And then see where the district, where the district, what their needs are, and then just, working to fill that need. And if it is in assisting in selecting a program, offer to do that in any way that, they feel they have the ability and the capacity to do so.
Awesome. Okay, that's all the questions I have for y'all right now. I'd like to join Stephanie and Katie back with us. One of the questions was, how did you select which programs you were going to review for your publication?
We had a variety of criteria. I will let Katie weigh in on this because I'm not going to remember what all of them were. They were basically the programs had to have some sort of research that had been done on them. They had to be for elementary school. They had to have materials that we could actually read and code. So we had to be able to get the program and actually be able to read it and understand what it was doing. And they had to be widely available. So we tried to include programs that are used around the U.S. to a great degree. Katie, is there anything I forgot?
No, I think you covered it all, Stephanie.
Okay, what guidelines do you recommend, and this may be part of what you had, for determining what a school's priorities should be? Is that part of the resources you have?
So I think there is some text in the beginning of the report that in describing what SEL is and what high quality implementation looks like, that would probably give you a sense of what to prioritize or what things to think about in your setting when considering one program or another. For example, high quality implementation requires having the time in the day to do the work. So, this seems really simple, but this has been a real challenge for SEL. So one priority or one consideration might be, do we really have the time in our school day to devote to this work specifically, and how much do we have? So if really just 15 minutes or 10 minutes in a morning meeting, you need to really carefully think about an approach that fits that and is high quality in that time. Something like, for example, responsive classroom. If your setting or district or whatever doesn't really have the time to devote to specific lessons, it may be that a program that is more routine-based or strategy-based, something perhaps even like good behavior game might make more sense. So the beginning of the report sort of lays out the landscape of SEL and ways of thinking about it. It describes features of implementation and what's important to have embedded in the setting, or at least what to think about. So that's probably where I would look about priorities.
Yeah, and I would just add that the worksheets at the end have some guiding questions that can get you started thinking about those types of things and asking questions of your district or school or program or wherever you're looking for a program.
Any other questions? You still have a little bit of time. You can type them in. I want to say that I feel like the resources that Katie and Stephanie have put together is a great place to start if you're just beginning to look at an SEL program, or if you're wanting to do some evaluation on what you're currently doing and see how you might improve on your social emotional learning. I think this is a critical area. The whole child model obviously addresses it more with, like Hugh mentioned earlier. And I really appreciate what Hugh and Josette are doing, trying to work with all the districts in the surrounding area where we are and get that focus on social emotional learning and help our kids be more prepared to deal with some of the things that are happening in our world. So to me, this is a critical area that all districts should focus on, all our school health advisory councils should be involved with. And the work that the information we've provided today, I hope, will help any of you who have not been working in this area feel a little more confident in bringing it forward. And then those of you who have been working in this area, can you be mentors to other districts around your area? I know that we've worked with the regional service centers where they have worked to get different districts to share information and work together more. And I feel like it's really helpful, especially the larger districts can reach out and help some of the districts that may or may not have the same access to resources. So I don't see any additional questions. I want to thank Our presenters, Katie, Stephanie, Josette, Hugh, y'all are great to give up your time this morning for us. We will be sending a link to the recording. I will also include a link to the report so that you can download that. And if you have any additional questions for our presenters, feel free to email me, and I will check with them and get the information back to you. We also have other webinars that we have put on in the last few years on YouTube. You can go there and just put in Mamma Mia TX or Action Growth of Kids, and you will find webinars on all different topics for school advisory councils. So you can look at those at your leisure. It's been a great day. We didn't lose the internet, which is great. We've had a lot of storms in Austin, and it was kind of making me nervous that the webinar might be cut off right in the middle. But we did get through. So I appreciate everyone who joined us today, and I wish you good success with your work with SEL, and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.